This episode is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this episode constitutes medical advice, dietary guidance, or health recommendations of any kind. I am a podcast host. I am not a medical professional. I am not a registered dietitian, therapist, or licensed healthcare provider in any form or fashion. The wellness industry criticism presented in this episode reflects my analysis and my opinion. It is not a substitute for consultation with a qualified medical professional. If you have questions about your health, diet, supplement use, or medical treatment, please consult a licensed professional who can evaluate your individual circumstances. This episode discusses disordered eating patterns and psychological harm in a general way. If you are experiencing a difficult relationship with food, eating, or your body, please remember that support is available. References to industry practice, business models, and content creator behavior described in general patterns and composite observations. No specific individual, brand, product, or organization is identified or is intended to be identified. Any resemblance to specific persons or entities is completely incidental. Opinions expressed are those of mine and mine alone, and do not represent the views of any sponsor, distributor, or platform on which this episode appears. So now, with all of that being said, if you are ready, let's go. There is a woman in your life, and it may be several, but this woman is very tired, and you can tell because she posts about it. She posts about her cortisol levels and her adrenal fatigue, as well as the parasite cleanse that she's been going to be doing this month, and the supplements that she takes in the morning that probably require a spreadsheet to track. She is doing everything right. She has eliminated gluten, dairy, seed oils, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, and most recently, she's also eliminated joy. She has a morning routine that starts at 5 a.m. and involves red light therapy and cold water. And it also involves a gratitude journal and a protein shake that probably costs about $40. And that protein shake, it tastes just like chalk, mixed with ambition. And she is exhausted, and she cannot figure out why. But I can tell you why. It's because she joined a cult. A clean, beige, linen-clad cult with a podcast and a supplement line and a very, very good Instagram aesthetic. And the cult's primary product? Well, that's not health. The cult's primary product is the feeling of moral superiority that comes from performing health correctly. And that feeling, that specific, expensive, exhausting feeling, well, that's what she's addicted to. Not wellness, but the performance of wellness. I'm April Rain, and this could be a cult. So let's talk about the cleanest con in America. Welcome, or welcome back to This Could Be a Cult. This is week 3, and this week's theme is the body as a battleground. Today's episode is about the wellness industrial complex, the $50 billion industry that took the entirely reasonable idea that you should take care of your body and turned it into a hierarchical belief system with moral stakes, in-group language, and a product for every problem that it convinces you that you have. We're going long today, ladies and gentlemen. Get comfortable. Drink your water. No, not your alkaline restructured hydrogen-infused water. Just plain old water. Your body can't tell the difference. I promise. And we're going to talk about why that sentence right there just made someone somewhere angry, and why that reaction is actually the whole episode in miniature. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. The wellness industrial complex runs on a concept that it never quite names out loud, but that structures everything it sells. The idea that there is a correct way to have a body, and the correct way costs money, takes time, requires specific products, and separates the people doing it right from the people who haven't woken up yet. This is not health. Health is the absence of disease, the presence of adequate sleep, movement, nutrition, and a general orientation toward not making yourself worse on purpose. Health is also, and I cannot stress this enough, largely free. Water is free, walking is free, sleeping is free, and most of the evidence-based foundations of a healthy life cost nothing or close to nothing. Wellness is health repackaged as an identity and sold back to you as a markup. The markup is for the aesthetic, the linen, the amber glass bottles, the font on the packaging that says this product understands you, and the feeling that choosing this supplement over that one is a statement about who you are and who you're becoming. And I want to spend a moment on the aesthetic because it is doing more doctrinal work than most people realize. The wellness aesthetic is not random. It is constructed, every single element of it. The warm neutrals, the natural materials, the handwritten fonts, the outdoor light, and the absence of anything synthetic or sharp. And that is communicating a unified theological position. And that position is that nature is good, artifice is corrupt, and people who live in alignment with nature are more evolved than people who don't. That's not a lifestyle preference. That's a cosmology. And the beige is doing something specific. It is signaling that the person who chose it has transcended the loud, brash, processed world of mainstream consumer culture and arrived somewhere quieter and way more intentional. The beige is a renunciation. And that amber water bottle that you carry around, well, that's not just a container. It holds something sacred, which is the supplement inside, and which you too can have for $68 plus shipping and handling. When the packaging looks handcrafted, it is communicating authenticity. When the font looks like it was written by a woman who tends an herb garden in Ojai, it is communicating that this product exists outside of the industrial food system, even though it is manufactured in the exact same facility as the product it distinguishes itself from. The aesthetic itself is the argument, and that argument is this: that this is the right way to have a body, and this is the proof of what that looks like. The hierarchy works like this. The people at the top are the people who are the most optimized. They have done the most, eliminated the most, and tracked the most. They're also not eating anything that could ever be described as enjoyable, and they are awake at hours that suggest either enlightenment or a very severe sleeping disorder. They are visible proof that the system works, and they are exhausted in a way that they have learned to describe as the healing process. Below those shiny, optimized people are the aspirants. These are the people who are doing some, but not all of it. These are the people who bought the supplements but haven't fixed their sleep, and who go to yoga but still drink wine. And these are also the people who feel vaguely guilty every time they see someone at the top of the hierarchy, because the system has taught them that their body is a project and that that project is never done. Below them are the people who haven't joined yet, who are still eating whatever, and who are, in the language of this wellness cult, not yet awake. They are the potential converts. Those people are the mission field. The hierarchy is the product, not the supplements, not the protocols, not the morning routine. The supplements are just the membership fee. And what you're actually buying is your position in the hierarchy, the proof that you are serious, the evidence visible to both yourself and others that you are the kind of person who actually does this correctly. And I want you to hold on to that for a second, because that's not a health claim. That's a status claim. And status claims are the engine of every high control group that has ever existed. The belief that doing the thing correctly makes you a different kind of person than the people who don't do that. So here is the specific mechanism by which the wellness industry converts a reasonable interest in health into a high control belief system. And it has 6 steps. I'm going to give you all 6, and I'm going to show you what they look like from the inside. Because the reason that they work is that each step feels entirely reasonable on its own. Step 1, identify the enemy. Every cult needs an enemy, something that is poisoning you, harming you, and keeping you from your optimal self. In wellness culture, that enemy rotates. It's been gluten, it's been dairy, it's been sugar, it's been seed oils, it's been processed food, and it's been toxins, which is a category so vague that it can mean anything. And most recently, the mainstream medical system itself. The enemy is always something you are consuming or trusting before you knew better. This is a very crucial feature, and it is not an accident. Because the enemy has to be something that you have access to, something that ordinary people are still consuming, and something that you can show that you have successfully renounced. The enemy is what creates the before, the you before you knew, and the you when you were still in the dark. The enemy is the thing that you're awakening from. And this is why the enemy always has to feel personal. It can't be something abstract and far away. It has to be something in your kitchen, in your body, or in the things that the doctor told you were fine. The enemy has to be intimate, because the wound has to be intimate, and because the rescue has to feel personal. The person who told you about the enemy didn't just sell you a supplement. They saved you from something that was inside your house. And that creates a very specific kind of loyalty. And that kind of loyalty is very difficult to undo. And here's step 2. They offer you the antidote. For every enemy, there is also a product. And this is the cleanest transaction in the wellness system. And it is the one that most people spot first, which is why it's not the most dangerous step. And yes, the person who told you about the enemy also happens to sell that antidote. And yes, the antidote is proprietary, expensive, and available through only them specifically. And yes, that is convenient. What makes this step functional rather than just obvious is the framing of the antidote as discovered rather than invented. The supplement didn't come from a lab, or rather, it did, but that's not how they describe it. They describe it as sourced, ancient, and they say indigenous communities have known about it for centuries. And your grandmother's grandmother used this before the industrial food system told you not to. The antidote is not a product. It is a restoration, a return. And it was something that was always there, waiting for you to find your way back to it. And this framing is doing a tremendous amount of work because it repositions the commercial transaction as a spiritual one. You're not buying a supplement, you're reclaiming what was taken from you. And the person who sold it to you isn't a vendor, they're a guide. And the relationship that you have with them is not a customer relationship. It is much stickier than that. So step 3 is that you build a community of the awakened. These are the people who have identified the enemy and adopted the antidote from a community. The community shares information, validates choices, and reinforces the belief that the enemy is real and the antidote is working. Dissenting opinions from outside the community, including those from doctors, are classified as either ignorance or corruption. This is the step where the social architecture starts to set, because you now have a group of people who share a cosmology. They speak the same language, and I mean literally the same language. Wellness culture has a vocabulary that functions as an in-group signal. Words like inflammatory, cortisol, phrases like toxic load, the word bioavailability, the term leaky gut, and the term terrain theory. You don't need to fully understand these terms to use them correctly in context either. You just need to have heard them enough times within the community that they feel like a native language. And once that vocabulary starts to feel like a native language, The people who don't speak it, well, they start to seem a little foreign. Community also creates a feedback system that is very difficult to exit because the community's primary social function is to validate the choices that you've made. And when you eliminate something from your life and you report feeling better, the community celebrates you. And when someone outside the community questions your choices, well, the community frames that skepticism as a threat. You are surrounded by people who will always tell you that you're doing the right thing, and that anyone who says otherwise just doesn't understand. This is not a health community. This is a closed epistemic system. It brings us to step 4, which is that they make the stakes moral. This is actually the most important step. Wellness becomes a cult when health choices become evidence of character. When eating the wrong thing is not just unhealthy, but irresponsible. And when not optimizing your sleep is laziness. When taking medication instead of supplements is a failure of self-knowledge. The body becomes a moral project, and every choice is a statement about whether you are good, awake, and a responsible person. Or that question then becomes, are you still asleep? I'm going to be precise about what changes in this step because it is subtle and it is very devastating. Before that moralization, a food choice was just a food choice. Maybe it's healthier or maybe it's less healthy. Either way, it's fine. But after moralization, a food choice is literally a character statement. It's evidence of who you are, and that means that making the wrong choice by eating the thing or skipping the protocol or taking the medication, that is not just a lapse in health management. It has now become a moral failure, and it is evident that you are not the person that you claim to be. And once the stakes are moral, shame becomes a functional tool of the system. Shame is a very, very effective behavior modification mechanism, and wellness culture deploys it constantly while maintaining plausible deniability about doing so. Nobody says you are a bad person for eating that. They simply say things like, I just felt better since I stopped, or I could never go back, or I don't judge people who still do that, just so you know. I just know how I feel. That judgment is embedded in the vocabulary of personal choice, and it arrives as a statement about the speaker, but it lands as a verdict on you. And that brings us to step 5, which is make the endpoint unreachable. A healthy body is achievable. An optimized body is not, because optimization is a direction, not a destination. And there is always another protocol, another toxin to eliminate, another supplement to add, and another expert saying that you're still not doing enough. The incompleteness is a feature because it keeps you buying. Think about how the wellness industry handles success. When someone reports feeling better, the response is never, great, you're done, you don't need us anymore. The response is always, imagine how you'll feel if you address the next layer. And that next layer is always deeper. And that next layer also involves a more expensive protocol, a more restricted diet, and a more committed daily practice. The wellness system does not have a graduation ceremony. It is an ever-receding horizon. And the people at the furthest edge of that horizon, those people that are the most optimized, that have eliminated the most, and are the most committed, well, they're the ones held up as proof that the system works. And not because they got healthy, but because they just got more. And this is also where the unfalsifiability lives. If you try the protocol and feel better, it worked. If you try the protocol and feel worse, you're detoxing. That's just part of the healing process. It gets worse before it gets better. And if you try the protocol and feel the same, well, then you haven't been consistent enough, or you haven't addressed the underlying issue, or you need to eliminate something else first. There is no result that the protocol cannot absorb. That is not science. That is actually faith. And then that brings us to step 6. They make the exit shameful. Leaving the wellness system, deciding you're going to eat bread, take your medication, or sleep 8 hours without a sleep tracker, is coded as giving up. It's coded as settling. It's thought of as going back to sleep. And the social cost of your exit is very real, because you built relationships inside the community and you left a version that you're proud of inside of their belief system. Leaving the wellness system doesn't mean changing your diet. It means admitting that you were wrong about something that you were very publicly expressing that you were right about. And it means leaving a community that validated you. It means dismantling a morning routine that you used to organize your sense of self. And it means becoming, at least in the language of the system, the kind of person who couldn't maintain it. And that is a very high social and psychological cost to pay for eating a normal meal. So those are the 6 steps. You've seen all of them, and you may be inside several of them right now. I want to talk about the people who run this system. I don't mean the faceless supplement companies, though we'll get there. I'm talking about the human beings who serve as this system's clergy, the wellness content creators, the people whose faces and bodies and kitchens and morning routines are the interface between the doctrine and the convert. Because the wellness cult, unlike some other high control groups, does not have a single charismatic leader at the top. It has thousands of them, each one with a following somewhere between 10,000 and 10 million people. And those people receive their health information, their product recommendations, their moral guidance, and a significant portion of their sense of self from a person that they have never met and will probably never meet, but who they experience as a friend. The mechanism that makes this possible actually has a name, and its name is a parasocial relationship. It's not a new concept. Parasocial connection is as old as celebrity, but the wellness content creator deploys it more deliberately and more effectively than almost any other genre of public figure. And that's because the content that they produce is designed to simulate intimacy. Let me walk you through what that looks like in practice. The wellness creator does not produce polished, distant content. They produce confessional content. They film themselves in their kitchens, in their cars, in their bathrooms after the gym, and they share all of their health struggles. They share things like the diagnosis that they had to fight for, the years they spent not feeling well, and the moment that changed everything for them. And they do cry sometimes, authentically, or at least nearly authentically. And they do it on camera, and then they send it to you. And you're going to receive that message of that influencer crying in their car on the exact same app where your sister or your best friend sends you memes all the time. And the medium is doing as much work as the message. The context in which you receive that person is the exact same context in which you receive people that you actually know. And the nervous system does not fully distinguish between the two. Then they give you something. Not just information, because information positions them as an authority, and an authority automatically creates distance. What they give you instead is access. They say things like, here's what I actually eat in a day, and here's the supplement that I take, but I never talk about publicly, girl. Here's what my doctor doesn't know about how I manage my own health. And the feeling of receiving that insider information from someone you trust is the same feeling of being chosen, of being on the inside. And being on the inside is the most powerful recruitment tool that has ever existed. The authority, when it does get established, is established through a very specific set of credentials that are not the same as medical credentials, but are designed to feel like the equivalent. There is a lived experienced credential that they give you. Girl, I have this condition and I figured it out and I can show you how. There is the research credential. I've read the studies and I've talked to the experts. I can translate it for you, girl. Which implies that they have done the vetting so that you don't have to. And then there is the results credential. Girl, look at how I look. Look at my skin. Look at my energy. Look at the life I have built from the protocols I am now selling you. My body is the proof, girl. My body is that clinical trial. Here is where that model gets predatory, because the creator's body and the aspirational life it's framed within is the product that's actually being sold. The supplements, those are almost secondary. What you're actually purchasing is that the hope that if you do what they do, you'll feel what they say that they feel, and eventually live something that looks like what they show you. You are purchasing the outcome as if it is transferable. You're purchasing their life, and it's distilled into a morning stack and a 30-day protocol. There is also, in the wellness creator ecosystem, a specific use of vulnerability that I want to name very carefully because it is both genuine and strategic. These are often the people who did struggle, the people who did have health experiences that the medical system failed to address. They did find something that helped them. The origin story is very real, but what makes it a mechanism of control is that the real origin story does not automatically produce a valid protocol, and a personal recovery does not automatically produce medical authority. The wellness creator has usually experienced something, but what they have not done is demonstrate that their experience generalizes to yours. But the intimacy of how they share it, the tears, the before and after, and the sense of, I was just like you, makes their particular story feel universal in a way that is very difficult to examine critically, especially from inside a parasocial relationship. The high priest or priestess, aka the wellness creator, knows your name. They know your birthday from your reply to their stories, and they make you feel through every piece of content that they produce that they are talking specifically to you. And they are, because that's the job. The job is to make the many feel like the one, and to make the broadcast feel more like a conversation. And then, from inside that conversation, to sell you the antidote to the enemy that they told you about last week. I owe you the Stillman, and it is very genuinely substantial. The mainstream medical system in the United States is not well. It is expensive, inaccessible, fragmented, and shaped by pharmaceutical industry incentives that do not always align with patient outcomes. The doctors are overworked and undertrained in nutrition. Chronic illness is extremely underserved, and women's pain is systematically undertreated and dismissed. The specific experiences that drive women into wellness culture, which are being told that their symptoms are anxiety, being given antidepressants for conditions that actually turned out to be autoimmune conditions, or just flat out being dismissed when they say that something is wrong. Well, those experiences are very real, and they're very, very documented. Be more specific, because the Steelman deserves specificity. The average primary care appointment in the United States today is somewhere between 15 and 18 minutes. And in that time, a physician is expected to review your chart, conduct an exam, address any concerns that you may have, order tests if they're warranted, and discuss results if they're available, not to mention provide treatment recommendations. 15 minutes for a body that has been accumulating symptoms for months, or in some cases, years. And that is not a failure of the individual doctors. That is a structural failure. It is what a system optimizes for thought-put rather than what outcomes look like on the ground. And the person sitting across from you in that 15-minute appointment, that person who is tired and not feeling right and can't get you to give them a straight answer, well, they're going to leave that office and they're going to find someone who will give them 2 hours. And that wellness practitioner is going to give that patient 2 hours. The intake form alone for most wellness practitioners is longer than most medical appointments. It asks you about your sleep, your digestion, your cycle, your stress levels, your childhood health history, your relationship with food, and your sense of self-worth. It asks pretty much essentially, everything the conventional medical appointment does not have time to ask. And the person filling it out feels, for perhaps the first time in a very long time, like their full experience is being witnessed. And that feeling is not fake. It is not a trick. It is a real human need being met. And the tragedy is not that the need is being met. The tragedy is what is being asked in exchange for meeting it. Because the wellness industry grew in the gap that the medical system left. It offers time, attention, validation, community, and the feeling of having agency over your own body. These are the things that the medical system often does not offer. And for some people, in some circumstances, the wellness framework found real things: food sensitivities, sleep disorders, and stress responses. And the conventional medical system missed all of these. Also, not going to pretend that conventional medicine has a clean record on women's bodies specifically. The history of women's health in Western medicine is a history of dismissal, misdiagnosis, and the medicalization of ordinary experience on one end, and the pathologizing of genuine illness on the other. Hysteria as a diagnosis category survived until 1980. And the gender pain gap, that's the documented tendency of healthcare providers to undertreat pain in women relative to the equivalent pain in men, is very real and very studied. Endometriosis takes an average of 7 to 10 years to diagnose. And autoimmune diseases, which disproportionately affect women, are frequently dismissed as anxiety before they are ever correctly identified. Women are not paranoid to distrust a system with that type of track record. They are simply responding rationally to documented evidence. And so, the Stillman is this: the wellness industry did not manufacture the distrust of conventional medicine from nothing. It found the distrust that was already there, which was rational and earned, by the way, and it offered itself as the alternative. The problem is not the distrust. The problem is not the desire for agency. The problem is also not the wish to be seen and heard and taken seriously. The problem is what the wellness industry built on top of that: a for-profit belief system that exploits the same vulnerabilities the medical system created and monetizes them more effectively. And they operate with no accountability whatsoever. At least the medical system has malpractice law, and the supplement industry has a disclaimer that says that these statements are not evaluated by the FDA. The answer to a broken medical system is actually a better medical system. The answer is not a $50,000 retreat where you hold your breath until you understand yourself. The answer is not a supplement company whose founder has a story and a podcast and a very good Instagram and zero medical training. The answer is structurally, which means it is slow and unsexy and does not have an amber glass water bottle. And so here is something that does not get talked about nearly enough in conversations about wellness culture. It's frequently a gateway. The pathway from "I started paying attention to what I eat" to "the government is poisoning the water supply" is much shorter and way more traveled than most people who are standing at the beginning of it would ever believe. And the reason it's short is not that wellness people are gullible or stupid. The reason it's short is structural. The same epistemic architecture that makes wellness culture work, with that in-group knowledge, the corrupted mainstream, and the awakened versus the asleep, well, that maps perfectly onto conspiratorial frameworks. And once you have built the habit of believing that the official institutions are hiding something from you, well, you're one step away from believing that official institutions are hiding everything from you. So let me walk you through that architecture. Wellness culture establishes in step 1 of its mechanism that there is an enemy and that the enemy is operating in your life before you even knew about it. It establishes that the conventional systems like medicine, food, regulation, and agriculture are either ignorant of the enemy or they're complicit in it. And it establishes that people who tried to tell you about the enemy were dismissed, ridiculed, or actively suppressed. It also establishes that mainstream science and consensus opinion cannot be trusted on this specific topic because they are captured by the industries that they are supposed to regulate. Now, once you have accepted all of that as true, and millions of people have, because the specific things being claimed are sometimes partially true, well then, you will have built a template. You have built an epistemology. And you have learned how to evaluate claims by not examining the evidence, but by identifying which side of the mainstream versus the awakened divide that claim comes from. Claims from the mainstream are suspect, but claims from the awakened community are credible by virtue of their opposition to the mainstream. This is the epistemic framework, and it is fully transferable. The transfer is rarely sudden. It tends to happen through a series of content recommendations and community overlaps that feel organic. And you start following a wellness creator because of something genuinely useful. And that was a post about a nutrient deficiency that you were able later to confirm with your doctor. The algorithm, watching what you engage with, begins feeding you adjacent content. And some of it is still clearly health-focused, but some of it is health-adjacent. And it's health-adjacent in a way that starts introducing other frameworks, talking about the ingredients in your food, or the chemicals in your water, or the motivations of the pharmaceutical industry, or the things that scientists are not allowed to say publicly. And each step is small. Each step builds on the epistemological architecture that was established in the one before it. And by the time the content is explicitly conspiratorial, well, you've been given a framework that makes it feel like the very next logical step. Because it is. And the framework was always going to go here. So let me be clear about what I am and am not saying here. I am not saying that everyone in the wellness industry ends up radicalized, because they do not. And I'm not saying that there is a coordinated plan to use wellness as a recruitment pipeline. There mostly isn't, though there are some organizations that have deliberately used wellness spaces as entry points, and that's very well documented. But what I am saying is that the epistemological structure of wellness culture and the epistemological structure of conspiratorial thinking are the same structure. They're built on the same foundation, and they produce the same habits of mind. And when they share platforms, communities, and content recommendation systems, the gradient between them becomes almost frictionless. The reason this matters is not just political. The reason that this matters is very medical. The single largest documented harm of conspiratorial health beliefs is the refusal of treatment. The person who has learned that institutions are corrupt, that the pharmaceutical companies cannot be trusted, and that doctors are captured by industry incentives. Well, that is the person who declines the treatment that would have helped them. The pipeline from wellness culture to medical refusal is the pipeline that costs lives. Not dramatically, and not visibly, not in any way that gets attributed correctly at least, but just quietly, one person at a time, deciding that what the system would do for them is the very same thing that the system has been hiding from them. Now I want to talk about who this industry is actually for, because it presents itself as universal, as a movement towards health that anyone can access, that is really about getting back to basics, and that is actually less expensive than the processed food it replaces. That is the story. And like most stories told by industries about themselves, it is selective. The wellness industrial complex is at its core a luxury product sold to middle-class and upper-middle-class women as a health intervention. That is not an accusation. That is a demographic description of its primary market, its primary creators, and its primary beneficiaries. And when I say beneficiaries, I mean the people who derive some genuine value from the community and the attention and the sense of urgency. I do not mean the people who sell the supplements, because they are going to benefit regardless. The economic architecture is not subtle either. The entry-level wellness consumer, that's the person who starts buying supplements, switches to organic, and invests in a fitness tracker. Well, they are spending money that not everyone has to spend. The further up the hierarchy you go, the more expensive the protocol. Functional medical practitioners who are frequently not covered by insurance charge between $200 and $500 per consultation. Elimination diets and whole food products require access to grocery stores that carry the products. It takes the time to prepare the food, and a body whose work schedule actually is going to permit that routine. Wellness retreats, which are positioned as the highest form of the practice, run from several $1,000s a weekend to tens of thousands of dollars for a residential program. The optimization at the top of the hierarchy is not available to people who are working 2 jobs, and the system does not acknowledge this. It positions the inaccessibility as a motivation. If you can't afford the retreat yet, well, that's why you need to commit to the smaller protocols, build the discipline, and work forward with it. The hierarchy is aspirational by design, and you were always meant to be reaching for that next tier. The race architecture is more layered. Wellness culture routinely draws on indigenous knowledge systems, traditional healing practices, and non-Western relationships to the body. And it does so primarily in ways that extract the practice while erasing the culture that it comes from. The adaptogenic herbs come from Ayurvedic medicine. The breathwork comes from pranayama. The ancestral eating framework draws on both indigenous American and African food traditions. The somatic practices have roots in Taoism and Eastern Asian bodywork. And this is very, very rarely credited. And it's never compensated. And none of the communities from which these practices were drawn are the communities that are being actively marketed to or sold back to via those amber glass bottles. There is also a specific and very underexamined dynamic in how wellness culture talks about the body in relation to race. The ancestral diet, or the idea that you should eat what your ancestors ate in order to reconnect with your genetic heritage through food, well, that sounds neutral, until you notice that that framework is almost never applied to Hispanic or African ancestral food traditions in the same aspirational register. Those traditions are present in wellness culture as evidence, as proof that the ancestral eating works, but not as the template. The template, in most mainstream wellness content, is a specific kind of Euro-adjacent hunter-gatherer ideal that has its own policies, its own history, and its own relationship to the ideas about which bodies are the correct bodies. I am not going to go further down that corridor today, but I am naming the door because it is there. And then there is the question of who gets the luxury of believing that their body is a project. And there's also the question of who gets to spend their cognitive energy and their disposable income on optimization. The women who are not in the wellness culture, that's the women who are working jobs with physical demands, the women who don't have access to 15 different grocery stores to buy everything organic or made here or manufactured here, the women who cannot afford the practitioner, and the women who are managing chronic conditions in the conventional medical system because it is the only thing that they have access to. Well, those women are frequently positioned by wellness culture as the people who haven't woken up yet, the people who are still consuming the toxins, and the people who have not made the choices. The moralization of health choices lands very differently when one group has the economic conditions to make the optimized choices, and the other group simply does not. The language of personal responsibility for your body is always political. In a system where your access to health resources is substantially determined by your income and your zip code, blaming people for their health choices is not a health framework. It is a class framework. It's simply wearing a linen shirt. So now I want to talk about specific harm. And when I say specific harm, That is because the wellness industry's defense is always that it's just helping people to feel better. And I really want to talk about what feeling better sometimes costs. Financial harm. The supplement industry in the United States generates over $50 billion annually. The average engaged wellness consumer, that's the person doing the protocols, buying the products, and attending the retreats, well, that person spends between $2,000 and $10,000 per year on wellness products. For people in the lower income brackets who are being actively recruited into this system, that is genuinely ruinous. There are people who have spent money they could not afford on protocols that did not help them, that were sold by creators who had no liability for the outcomes. There is no recourse. There is no malpractice. There is only the disclaimer that said these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. And you agreed to those when you clicked Add to Cart. Medical harm. Delayed diagnosis. This one is documented in individual case studies and in the broader literature on treatment delays in people who use complementary and alternative medicine as a primary intervention. People who manage symptoms with wellness products for months or years before receiving diagnosis of conditions that were treatable but had become significantly worse in the interim. The conditions turn up in the case histories behind wellness to conventional medicine reversals. The supplements did not cause the conditions, but the delays did. And the delay was, at least in part, a product of a belief system that had successfully taught the person that their conventional medical system was not to be trusted. Physical harm. The moralization of eating is well documented as a risk factor for disordered eating patterns. The obsessive pursuit of dietary purity is recognized by clinicians as a real and growing presentation, not a passing trend, night hypochondria, but a genuine disruption of a person's relationship to eating that can be very severe and very lasting. The wellness industry's language of clean eating, toxic food, and dietary transgression maps almost perfectly onto these thought patterns. The person who begins by eliminating one ingredient for health reasons and ends up building a life organized around the avoidance of foods that feel dangerous to them, well, they did not make a single bad decision. They simply followed a system that was specifically designed to make each step feel necessary and the next step feel inevitable. I want to say something direct here, and I want to say it very carefully. If you are someone who has found yourself spending increasing amounts of mental energy on what you are eating, or if the food has become a source of significant anxiety rather than pleasure, or if you feel your day is contaminated by a food choice, or if the pursuit of dietary purity is affecting your relationships or your quality of life, if any of that, what I just described, is happening in your life, it is worth talking to a clinician about. Not a wellness practitioner, but a clinician. Because what I have described is a real thing that happens to real people inside real wellness systems. And it is treatable. And you do not have to stay inside a framework that is making you feel smaller. And that brings me to the last harm, which is social harm. The relationships that go with the belief system. The family dinners that become fraught. The friends who can't understand why you just don't eat the pasta. The slow narrowing of your world to the people who only share that same protocol. You know this story. You have watched it happen to someone somewhere. Or you may be that someone. None of these harms are dramatic in the way that cult harms are sometimes dramatic. Nobody is isolated on a compound. Nobody is prohibited from leaving. The harm is accumulated quietly, in increments, and by the time it is visible, it has been building for years. That is what makes it so hard to name, and that is also what makes it worth naming. I'm going to give you a moment, not a quiz, but a mirror, and you can choose to look or not look. You've described a food as toxic in the last 6 months, and you meant it as a moral statement rather than as a medical one. Not because the doctor told you that it was harming you specifically, but because the community told you that it harms people in general. And you applied that to your choices. And now the word that you reach for is toxic. You felt superior to someone because of what they were eating. Not superior in an abstract way either. Superior in a quiet, involuntary, internal way that you might not have even acknowledged to yourself. It's just a small flash of I know something that they don't. And that flash is this hierarchy at work. You felt guilty about something you ate in a way that lasted way longer than the eating. The food was consumed in minutes, but the guilt that you felt ran for hours or even days. You even returned to it, and you factored it into the sense of how you were doing. Your food choice became a moral accounting party. You've spent more on wellness products this year than your copay or your deductible. This one is concrete, and you can go and check, but you don't have to. You've recommended a protocol to someone who didn't ask. You brought it up in conversation while they were talking about their health or their body, and you did so without it being invited. And when you think about why, the honest answer is not that you were purely concerned about them. Part of it is that recommending it is a way of recommending yourself, your choices, and your identity. And it also recommends and lets them know your position in the hierarchy. You've dismissed a doctor's opinion by reaching for a framework rather than engaging with the specific thing that the doctor said. And not because you evaluated their reasoning and you found it wanting, but because they represent the mainstream, and the mainstream is the enemy. And you have been given a template for how you're supposed to handle enemy information. Now haven't you? And this one is my personal favorite. You've found that your circle of people that you can eat comfortably with has dramatically decreased. Not because you have a diagnosed medical need to avoid things, but because the social ritual of eating has become too layered with information and judgment and sales of protocols to be easy anymore. And you miss easy. You miss it way more than you'll even let yourself say. None of these make you a bad person, and none of these make you foolish. They make you a human, inside a system that is very good at what it does. And the question is not whether or not you get caught. The question is whether you want to stay caught. Your body does not need to be optimized. It needs to be fed, moved, rested, and treated with basic kindness. That's it. That is the whole protocol. Not the starting protocol, the whole one. Everything else, the supplements, the tracking, the elimination, the hierarchy, the high priestess, the morning routine that starts at 5 a.m., that is all a product that someone is selling you. And the most expensive thing that they're selling is not the supplement. It's the belief that you are not enough without it. That your body, as it is some type of problem to be solved. And that your health is something that you perform correctly or incorrectly. That your worth as a person is legible in what you eat and how early you wake up and how clean your protocol is. That belief is the con. Everything else is just the packaging. So that woman from the opening, the one who's doing everything right and who is exhausted and cannot figure out why, well, she cannot figure out why because the system is not designed to resolve anything. It's only designed to perpetuate. She will always be almost there. She will always be just on the edge of being optimal. She will always have one more thing to address before that she can rest. And she will rest when she decides to, not when the system gives her permission. Because the system will never give her permission. And that is not a bug. That is the product. I'm April Rain, and this could be a cult. You already know the rules.